All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into sustainable packaging.
Okay.
We chose this topic because if you're listening, you're probably trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to make your store's packaging more sustainable.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of research, and we're going to try to distill it down to the most important points.
Yep.
And give you some ideas for what you can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really struggling with this right now.
Yeah, especially since almost 80% of retailers are trying to make their packaging more sustainable.
It's a big trend right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not just about being trendy. It's becoming like a core part of the whole customer experience.
Yeah, it's like the unboxing experience is so important these days.
Exactly, especially with e-commerce.
Yeah.
So you got to think about the packaging.
So it's not just about slapping a recyclable label on something.
Right, it's much more than that.
What do you mean by sustainable packaging?
Well, it's about choosing the right materials, of course.
Okay.
Biodegradable stuff or things that can be recycled easily.
Okay.
But it's also about using less packaging overall.
Right.
And then thinking about what happens to it after the customer's done with it.
So it's the whole life cycle of the package, from sourcing the materials to what happens to it at the end.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay, so that sounds kind of daunting. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think a good place to start is by just trying to use less packaging in the first place.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, one idea is to offer bulk options.
Okay.
So instead of selling one bar of soap, you could sell a 3-pack.
Okay, so bundled together.
Exactly. And that way you're using less packaging overall.
And probably saving money on materials, too.
Exactly.
And customers might like that, too.
Yeah, a lot of people like bulk options because they see it as a better value.
Right, they're getting more for their money.
Exactly. So it can be a win-win-win.
Less packaging, lower costs, happier customers.
Exactly.
Okay, so what else can we do to minimize packaging?
Well, another idea is to sell certain things by weight.
Okay.
So instead of pre-packaging everything, you could have a bulk bin.
Okay.
And people could just buy the amount they need.
And that would work for
granola, coffee beans, bath salts, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It cuts down on all those individual packages.
Right, and it could even be a more personalized experience, they're getting exactly what they want.
Yeah, I think people appreciate that.
Okay, so we've got bulk sales and selling by weight. What other strategies are out there?
Well, there's this thing called order clustering.
Order clustering? What's that?
So basically, it's about encouraging customers to combine multiple items into one order.
Okay.
So instead of ordering one thing one day and then another thing the next day,
right,
they just ordered everything at once.
Okay.
You could put a little message on the checkout page, reminding them to combine their orders to save on packaging.
Yeah. Oh, that's smart. And maybe offer a discount if they order a certain amount?
Exactly.
To kind of incentivize them?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little reward for making a sustainable choice.
I like that. Okay, so that's order clustering. What else?
Well, have you thought about offering alternatives to shipping?
Like in-store pickup?
Yeah, exactly. Or curbside pickup.
Yeah, I love that option because sometimes I just need something right away.
Right, it's so much faster.
And you don't have to worry about all the packaging.
Exactly.
Plus, it's probably cheaper for the store, too.
Yeah, definitely.
And apparently a lot of shoppers prefer it.
Oh, yeah. Almost 30% of people say they would rather pick up their orders than have them delivered.
Wow, that's a lot.
So if you have a physical store, definitely think about offering pickup options.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about minimizing packaging and offering pickup options.
Right.
What about incentivizing people to bring their own bags?
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea.
Offering a discount if they bring their own bag.
Exactly. Even a small discount can make a difference.
Yeah, I've seen some stores doing that, and it always makes me feel good about shopping there.
It shows that they actually care about the environment.
Yeah, and it makes you as the customer feel like you're part of the solution.
Exactly. And I think people are really craving that these days,
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with so many people missing those in-person shopping experiences.
Right, it's a way to make it more special.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're talking about reducing waste and reusing packaging.
Yep.
Are there any other ways to close the loop on packaging?
Well, one idea is to allow customers to return their packaging.
Okay.
So they can either mail it back or drop it off at the store.
And then you can reuse it or recycle it.
Exactly.
So it's like a closed loop system?
Right.
I've seen some online brands doing that.
Yeah, it's a great way to show that you're committed to sustainability.
And it probably saves you money on packaging, too.
Exactly.
Plus, it could build some serious brand loyalty, People like to support companies that are doing good things.
Right.
And then there's also the option of reusing packaging that you get from your vendors.
Oh, yeah, that's a smart move.
I was reading about this store called Botanic in Lux.
Mm-hmm.
They're a boutique in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And they reuse a lot of the packaging that they get from their vendors.
That's awesome.
But they conceal it with nice tissue paper and stuff, so you would never know
That's so smart.
that it's not brand new.
And it saves them money. money.
Right.
So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about minimizing packaging, choosing the right materials,
Right.
thinking about the whole life cycle.
Yep.
What are some of the bigger trends that we should be thinking about when it comes to sustainable packaging?
Well, I think one of the biggest trends is transparency.
Transparent.
Yeah, like customers want to know where their products come from,
Okay.
how they were made, what happens to the packaging at the end of its life.
So they're really looking for brands that align with their values.
Exactly.
So it's not enough to just say we're eco-friendly.
Right, you have to be able to back it up.
You have to show them the receipts.
Exactly.
And it goes beyond just the packaging itself, too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's about the whole supply chain,
the whole thing.
making sure everything is as sustainable as possible.
Yep, from start to finish.
Wow, this is a lot to think about.
It is.
But it's also really exciting. You know,
Yeah.
like there are so many opportunities to make a difference.
For sure.
And I think consumers are really starting to demand it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So businesses that are on top of this are going to have a real advantage.
Definitely.
Well, this has been super informative.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back after a quick break with even more sustainable packaging strategies and some actionable tips you can implement right away.
Sounds good.
So we were talking about transparency, right?
Yeah.
Like customers really want to know where their products are coming from and how they're made,
Yeah, it's not just about the final product anymore.
right? It's about the whole process.
Exactly. Like, are the materials sustainably sourced? Are the workers being treated fairly?
Yeah, are they paid a living wage?
Exactly. All of that stuff matters.
And I think there are a lot of certifications and labels out there now that can help consumers make more informed decisions.
Yeah, there are a bunch.
Like I've seen the Fair Trade Certified label
Yeah, that's a good one.
and the Forest Stewardship Council.
FSC, yeah.
What do those mean exactly?
So fair trade means that the producers were paid a fair price for their goods
Okay.
and that they're working in safe and healthy conditions.
So it's about social responsibility as well as environmental responsibility.
Right, it's all connected.
And what about the FSC label?
So that one applies to wood and paper products.
Okay.
And it basically means that the wood came from a responsibly managed forest.
So it wasn't like clear cut or something.
Right, exactly.
So by looking for these labels, consumers can be more confident that their purchases are actually supporting sustainable practices.
Yeah, it gives them some peace of mind.
And I think it's good for businesses too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like if you're using certified materials, it shows that you're committed to doing things the right way.
Exactly. And it can attract customers who share those values.
Right, like it's a win-win.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about minimizing packaging and choosing the right materials and making sure things are ethically sourced.
Right.
What about the end of the packaging's life?
Ah, yes, the afterlife of packaging.
Like what happens after the customer is done with it?
Well, ideally, it would get recycled or composted.
Right.
But that's not always possible.
Why not?
Well, sometimes the packaging is made of materials that can't be recycled,
Oh, like what?
like certain types of plastic.
Okay.
Or it might have like food residue on it,
Right.
which can contaminate the recycling stream.
So it ends up in the landfill.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So how can we avoid that?
Well, it starts with designing packaging for recyclability.
Okay.
So that means using materials that can be easily recycled
Okay.
and avoiding things like mixed materials. Mixed materials?
Yeah, like if you have a package that's made of paper and plastic,
Okay.
it's really hard to separate those materials so they can't be recycled.
Oh, I see.
And you also want to avoid things like adhesives and coatings.
Oh, yeah.
Because those can also contaminate the recycling stream.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot to think about when it comes to designing sustainable packaging.
There is.
Like, are there any resources out there that can help businesses with this?
Oh, yeah, there's some great organizations out there.
Like what?
Well, there's the Sustainable Packaging Coalition.
Okay.
They have a lot of resources on their website,
Like what kind of resources?
like design guidelines for recyclability.
Oh, that's helpful.
And there are also software programs that can analyze packaging designs
Oh, wow.
and identify potential issues.
So it can tell you like, hey, this material is not recyclable.
Exactly. That's awesome. So even if you're not a packaging expert, there's help available.
Yeah, there's a lot of support out there.
That's good to know. I bet there are a lot of people who are really passionate about this.
Oh, yeah,
It's a
definitely.
whole community of packaging nerds.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
Exactly. Collaboration is key.
I love that. So it's not just about competition.
No, it's about working together to find solutions.
Because we're all in this together.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. What are some key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that sustainable packaging is not just a trend.
Right.
It's a fundamental shift in how we think about the products we consume.
And the impact they have on the planet.
Exactly.
And it's not about making like grand gestures.
No.
It's about making small incremental changes
Right.
that when added up can have a big impact.
Exactly.
So like choosing to use less packaging,
Yeah.
opting for sustainable materials, supporting ethical sourcing,
Yeah.
designing for recyclability.
All of those things matter.
Every choice we make matters.
Exactly.
And it's not just about doing the right thing.
Right.
It's also about good business.
Absolutely.
Consumers are demanding more sustainable options.
Yeah, they're voting with their wallets.
So businesses that are on top of this are going to thrive.
For sure, sustainability is the future.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Glad to hear it.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
So, we've been talking a lot about making packaging more sustainable.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's becoming about more than that.
Oh, for sure.
It's like a whole shift in how we think about like consumption and production.
Exactly.
It's not just about reducing waste anymore.
Right. It's about creating a circular economy.
A circular economy.
Yeah. So instead of just like taking resources, making stuff, and then throwing it away.
Right. The old take, mix, dispose mod.
Exactly. We want to create a system where materials are reused and repurposed.
So they stay in circulation.
Right.
I guess that's where the idea of zero waste comes in.
Yeah. Zero waste is a great goal.
But it seems kind of impossible,
It can be challenging, but it's a good framework to think about.
Okay.
It's about constantly asking ourselves, how can we reduce waste at every step?
Yeah, and that probably means changing our habits as consumers, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like being more mindful about what we buy and how we dispose of packaging.
Exactly. Consumer education is key.
Right, because ultimately it's all connected.
Yeah, we're all part of the system.
And that can feel overwhelming.
It can.
But it's also kind of inspiring,
Yeah, for sure.
We can all make a difference.
Absolutely.
Even small changes can add up.
Exactly. Every little bit helps.
So it's like think globally, act locally.
Right.
We can all do our part.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive.
I'm glad you found it helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
My pleasure.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Hopefully some good ideas to take away.
So for everyone listening out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into sustainable packaging. Remember, every step we take towards a more sustainable future is a step in the right direction. So keep learning, stay curious, and don't be afraid to experiment. Let's make a difference together.